This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so let me go through the small group that we have. I see Jake, Dennis, Larry Fish, Len, Peter, Les Shelderup, and Sylvester. Did I miss anybody? Okay, well, that's it. This could be a record for the smallest group we've had in a long time. What a pleasure.
I think we actually lost Les. I don't see him on my list.
Oh, you're right. I don't see him either. He was here,
Yeah.
but we must have scared him away. He'll be back, no doubt.
Yeah.
So let me see who's got stuff to talk about today, and then we'll go from there. Jake, any update for us?
Yeah, I have a PSA update and a comment.
Okay. Dennis, anything that you'd like to talk about tonight?
Yeah, I got a question for Len, and I got a quick update on my new abiraterone generics that I'm getting. Matter of fact, okay.
Okay. Larry Fish, welcome so early. It's a pleasure to have you at the beginning of the meeting.
I came home from work and didn't forget that there was a meeting, although I almost forgot.
When are you going to start working? I thought you were supposed to be retiring.
I know, we're in the middle of another proposal. I somehow back in the mix, and I'm still thinking about going to 3 days a week.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to talk about tonight?
Nothing comes to mind at the moment.
Okay, well, think about it. We need you to think of something.
Larry,
yeah.
Larry, didn't you have an upcoming meeting with your MSK oncologist?
I do, but now I have another one that's upcoming. I mentioned last week that I'm sitting here in limbo, and we didn't make any decision about which direction to go. I like the route that we talked about last week, the darolutamide idea, to get some scans, and then since I have like constantly slowly rising PSA and castrate resistant, but I don't know the definition. If you were metastatic and then it resolves, are you still metastatic, or we can discuss this later.
Let's come back to you. So you do have something to talk about. Yes, you do.
I think about it, yeah.
Yeah, we do. Len, anything for you tonight?
Unfortunately, no, nothing to talk about.
Okay. All right. Peter, you must have something to talk about. You got your meeting coming up with your doctors.
Yeah, that's not till next week. My scan's next week. Yeah, I could talk about some of my, I could try to educate myself in preparation. I could ask some questions, see if anybody can shed some light on some stuff. But other than that, I won't have answers till next week.
No, but questions and preparing you is what we're all about.
Yeah.
We're happy to do that.
Okay. Yep.
And we seem to have lost Les, although I do know I did see him. He was here and gone. And Sylvester, how about you?
No, I never have anything.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to be
here. And we're always glad to have you. So one of these days you'll think of something important that you can talk to us about. All right. Well,
aren't you going to be a moderator on Inner Conversations?
I'm attempting to be.
Yeah. So talk about that.
Oh yeah, there you go.
You're not going to get off the hook tonight, Sylvester.
Yeah, we may ask you to talk about your new moderator career. Be careful, we'll hook you in here.
I was going to compliment you earlier today that you was doing a great job, but I'm not so sure anymore.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, let's kick off. Let's kick off with Jake. Jake, tell us what your PSA news is.
Okay. Well, I went to my doctor last week. As of today, I've been on abiraterone for 150 days, and my PSA, the previous was 23.8. It had gone down to like a half a point, and this time it went up a point and a half. So it's now 25.3. So it is not definitely not going down, but it doesn't seem to be going up very rapidly, if at all. So I guess basically, we're just kind of holding our own.
Okay. And what is your doc say about it? Or you don't know yet?
I haven't talked to her. I think knowing her, she'll be pleased with that because it's not going up. So, and I'm pleased with that, is that it's not going up that much. Like I said, it went up a point and a half. And the way I calculate, that's a doubling time of about 11 months at this point. And that's probably all I can expect at this point in my career as a prostate cancer patient.
Well, I didn't know that. I think that there's if we could get darolutamide. What about taking the bicalutamide? If not the darolutamide, you're supposed to be, your androgen receptors are supposed to be resensitized to bicalutamide, are they not?
Yeah, I've got to talk to her more about that because she was not receptive to the idea at all. She said, you've been on that and you failed it, is really the way she put it. She doesn't have much faith in the Foundation Medicine report, but I am going to talk to her about it. Right now, like I said, right now I'm kind of happy that it's staying as it has. Something's obviously going on, but it's not rising. So I don't know what exactly that says. That it's there's a PSA, but that it's not rising. I'm not sure what that says about the state of my cancer, to be honest. What do you think that means?
Jake, how often do you get scans?
As seldom as possible.
And which turns out to be what?
I had my last scan back in the summer.
Oh, so 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And it didn't show anything specific.
Oh yeah. It shows plenty. It says it showed mets in my spine and my hip, my sacrum, all that I've had before, and it showed a new one in my scapula. But what was really interesting to me was when I didn't have a prostatectomy. I had cryotherapy, focal cryotherapy, and where they froze essentially half of the prostate. And every time I get a scan, which is not very often because I don't like scans, it always showed my prostate was clear. This time, it did show cancer in the prostate again. So, and I think somebody actually said something the other day about cancer returning to the site of the, I don't know, was it you, Len, that posted something about that? The cancer returns to the original site?
Well, it's actually Rick posted on it. Rick and I discussed it a little bit, and he posted on it.
So
I don't know how. I think that was all in vitro or preclinical or
right.
graphic models. It wasn't human studies. Is that right, Rick?
Yeah, it was a video by
Pienta?
Ken Pienta.
Yeah, Pieta and Chuck Ryan. Yeah, it was very good. It was stimulating.
Yeah.
Wasn't it good? Yeah, and it's only 8 minutes long. Did you watch it, Jake?
I think I did. It sounds familiar. I knew I had heard it somewhere. I'll be honest, I don't remember if I actually watched it or not. I probably did,
Well,
but I don't remember.
let me see if I can post it in the chat window, because I definitely had it saved,
Okay.
and I'm pretty sure I can post it. I thought I put it in the letter, because it was very, very
Yeah.
You
interesting.
did.
You did. It was
You
in the
did.
letter.
It's in the letter, Jake. Can you find the letter, or do you want me to go find the link
Talking
again?
about the notice of the ANCAN or in the blog?
The
notice
notice,
Can.
notice of ANCAN.
Okay. Yeah, I keep them all. I have most of them. I know it's been very recent. I'll go back and look. But anyway, to answer your
What I
question,
thought, I was
Shannon,
thinking about you when I saw that, Jake, because Pienta seemed to think that it was a little unclear, but he seemed to think that there was benefit in debulking the primary tumor. And I think I may have discussed this with Rick, or maybe I was just thinking out loud to myself, and I was wondering, is there ever a point in time when it's too late to decide to debulk the primary tumor? Because I know you've been out there for many years without having had any. Well, you had that little bit of focal therapy, but you didn't ablate the prostate gland completely.
correct.
And so I wonder, I was thinking, gee, I wonder if Jay could benefit from some form of prostate cancer, prostate gland ablation, whether it be radiotherapy or surgery. I don't know how you feel about either one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it either, Len, to be honest. Um, but anyway, I don't know exactly what that means. It just means that my cancer is in my prostate, or at least it's showing up this time for the first time in like 6 years, which is strange.
Well, what I've just put the link again in the chat window. What Pienta postulates, and what was interesting is that it was news to Chuck, because he hadn't heard this theory before, is that the metastatic prostate cancer cells that get sloughed off of the distant tumors find their way back to the prostate gland, and they change the nature of the cells in the prostate gland, and then those new cells get pushed out, and so there's a continuously iterative process that is changing the cancer. Maybe this is one of the explanations for why the cancer morphs.
Right.
And he said that in both breast cancer and prostate cancer, it's been shown in mouse models. And there's really good reason to think that this is what is happening. And that is why, one of the reasons why, there's been a strong change in protocol to treat the primary tumor when you're diagnosed metastatic, which they never did in the past.
Right.
So, there is reason. The question, there's a couple of things. One is to think about what sort of treatment you might want to get to the actual prostate. And you could probably do it today with something like SBRT, which means you'd only have to do 3 or 4 sessions.
Right.
Or 4 or 5 sessions, but very few sessions. The other thing is, I just want to revisit, this issue about your not giving much credit to the Foundation Medicine report to me is bothersome. I don't know. Len, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I agree. like, why should she be so skeptical of Foundation Medicine report? Did she hear anything negative about Foundation Medicine, or just isn't convenient for her to consider what they're saying?
I don't think it's anything to do with negative, that she's heard something negative. It's just, she's going on her experience with me, and she's saying, bicalutamide worked, then stopped working. So in her book, it won't work again. Enzalutamide worked for me for 900 some days, and then it stopped working. But the Foundation says it wouldn't work for me because of the mutations. I don't think so she was, as far as she's concerned, enzalutamide won't work anymore, which is in agreement with what the Foundation Medicine reports. The same way with abiraterone. They say that abiraterone won't work, but she thinks it's worth giving it a shot, and that's what I'm doing right now. So I don't know I don't understand her exact thought process, to be honest with you. And I guess she's not paying any attention to the mutations. I think it all revolves, in my case, back to the mutations. That the Foundation Medicine report identified. And everything that I've seen about mutations means that you're not born with them. It's not a genetic thing. It's you develop them as you're being treated with enzalutamide, abiraterone, bicalutamide, whatever. And I think that's what happened in my case. So I've just got some more talking to her. I've got to educate her a little bit more, because she's, she basically does what I ask her to do. But right now, I'm kind of happy that it's kind of just on a level keel, even keel right now.
Well, a couple
How
of
much?
things
How much
occur
does
to
it?
me.
Sorry, how much does it go up? How often? Sorry, go ahead, Rick.
What'd you say, Dennis?
Larry, and then come in after me, because I just want to, this has been going through my mind. I mean, we know that prostate cancer changes, and hopefully she accepts that. If she doesn't accept that, there's so much evidence, she just has to educate herself. But we know the nature of the disease changes from being adenocarcinomic to something different. Now, if the androgen receptor, if the genetic mutations that govern the androgen receptors change as well, there is reason to think that something that worked and stopped working could start working again, because these mutations are changing all the time.
Right.
It seems to me that there's a couple of fairly easy ways to check it. To add bicalutamide to your abiraterone, because they work in very different ways.
Oh, take them together?
I mean, why not? I mean, we know that enzalutamide and abiraterone together don't make a difference.
Right.
We've shown that, but we've shown that in men who that don't necessarily have mutations. I mean, they've just tested it, so it's possible you could try it. You could then try it by stopping the abiraterone and seeing what happens with just the bicalutamide.
Right.
I mean, the bicalutamide is cheap, and if Foundation Medicine is correct, you should be responding to bicalutamide. You should also be responding to darolutamide. That's going to be a lot harder to get, as we know, right? And maybe we can. And one of the things I have to do today or tomorrow is send a reminder to Merchant, because Ken's going to see her on Thursday, and I want Ken to give her a zits to see what we can do for you on the darolutamide. But maybe the bicalutamide works.
Yeah, the Foundation Medicine report did not mention darolutamide at all. It was, of course, it's been almost 8 or 9 months, and they didn't even mention darolutamide.
I thought they did. I thought it said that your mutation.
Rick, I think that was something I found in the literature that I mentioned to Jake. Was that right, Jake? Wasn't that something I found? I don't think it was the Foundation Medicine report.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I found some stuff on darolutamide myself, specifically talking about those mutations that Foundation Medicine identified.
Right. You found it. That's right. You
Oh,
found
yeah,
it.
yeah.
And I tried to go back to them to ask them, why didn't you mention darolutamide as a possibility? They said
Right.
apalutamide probably would not work for me, just like Enzi and Abby wouldn't work. They said apalutamide wouldn't work either, but they didn't mention darolutamide at all. And that's why I went back to them and tried to get them to give me an answer, and they wouldn't talk to me about it. They said, well, we need to talk to your doctor. So
That's what Bayer said. No,
no,
Foundation.
Medicine said. When I asked them, why didn't you mention darolutamide as a either something that might work or wouldn't work, but they didn't mention it at all. And it was because at that time, when I guess mostly because it wasn't really approved yet, because it's only been approved this last summer, right? I believe.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And I got the Foundation Medicine thing back in, I don't know, April or May or so. So anyway, and then I've been trying to get answers from Bayer, as Rick knows, about the darolutamide, and have never heard back from them. And that's where you said Ken's going to talk to them about that.
Well, yeah, I've got to send a note to the Dr. Merchant in the next day or so, and then he will. I'm going to copy Ken on it and ask Ken to follow up. I'm going to blind copy Ken on it and ask him to follow up. Yeah. And she may not be willing to talk to him because of patient confidentiality, but there's no harm in trying. But the bottom line is that somebody, whether it was Foundation Medicine or you or Len or somebody, I may think it was you, who found out that darolutamide should work on those mutations that you have.
Right.
As should the bicalutamide.
Well, the bicalutamide was what Foundation Medicine said. The darolutamide was, I mainly started looking up that when I found out that Len was taking it. I started researching it, and I said, And then I found this one study, or it wasn't a study, it was a position paper more than a study, talking about these specific mutations. And I tried to find out from Bayer, are you addressing that? Are you looking into that? And nobody will give me an answer, because their approval is for non-metastatic. And I can't find any proof or evidence that there's even a study ongoing for metastatic, and I can't get a good answer. So I've just kind of just let it drop, to be honest with you. And my bone scan, the bone scan thing that Len managed to get it approved, my bone scan's so old. That was back in 2010. And my insurance company knows that I'm metastatic, so I really doubt whether I show a bone scan or not, they're not going to approve darolutamide unless it gets approved somehow.
Well, that's not true. That's not true. I mean, I think that probably you have too many mets for it to be so. But if you did show up as non-metastatic on the technician, no, they wouldn't say. I don't think they would say that. You just say, look, you've had some improvement. But I mean, that's not the point. The point really is whether we can get you to try off-label, which is on one thrust. The other way is to look at the bicalutamide and which is dirt cheap, so it doesn't hurt to try it with or without abiraterone. And the third thing is to talk about debulking the primary, properly debulking the primary.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Larry.
So I don't think I'm opening a can of worms here, but I think we're in a group where we all know each other. Nobody from really out of space here tonight. So I get the concept. It seems like I know you, Rick, Jake much better than I do and Len does, but I do get the feeling that he's kind of conservative in the way he approaches his disease. And that he found a doctor that aligns with him and is kind of conservative as well. And they don't sometimes you get a lot of managers for baseball teams. I mean, they don't like to make a lot of changes fast. They have a reasonable team, and you think a lot before you make a change. And I wanted to just ask some, basic questions, and then go through the same thing you're thinking about, which is that series of the thoughts about debulking, the thought about revisiting bicalutamide, um, looking at a possible trial that you would just fit into, which I don't know that anybody's been thinking about or taking a look. Since maybe there is something new that they're working with, some trial with darolutamide or some other, I don't know. So my question was, did you do chemo once?
No, I have never done chemo.
Okay,
That's
and you're an ABC, or you're really reluctant to ever try that?
a little bit of both. We've been, she said that's always an option, and she likes to hold that as a last resort. Um, so yeah, chemo is definitely in my future. And I'm not really that adverse to it. I don't like the idea, but I'm not adverse to it.
Yeah, in
I
my thought,
used to be ABC, but I'm not anymore. I've kind of changed my mind about that.
yeah. No, my thought is that the conservative method, your doctor
Yeah,
reminds me a little of my former doctor, which is you do something, you go along, you wait till it stops working, and then you go on to the next step. You
yeah.
hang out with that until it stops, you go on to the next step. And then what I see a lot of his patients, I know some of his patients, then there's what I would call final chemo. When nothing else is working, you move to this kind of chemo that doesn't exactly have a start and a finish. And I know that you're out of any protocol because the original protocol now is to do very early chemo or do very early Zytiga combo with Lupron, something like that. But the idea of doing a short course of chemo uh, and maybe bringing all the PSA down. The idea that it's constantly raising, I'm not going to answer that. The idea that it's constantly going up, makes me uncomfortable, even if it's small, because probably something is going on. And on the other hand, my doctor sometimes says those things can happen for other reasons, not because of the cancer as well. But at the same time, you said it's 23 something now?
25.3.
25.3. So there is a good size of, it's out of that normal 1 to 4 range.
Oh yeah,
It
it's
does,
been out of the range for years.
yeah. So that makes me feel like if you were going to consider a step, what step would you consider and who would you see to discuss it? Is that a
Um,
thought? Like, which would be like if you had to choose between making a decision about just doing just what you're doing, or which is probably your first choice, but what would be the other options? Which one sounds like glutamate to me seems, easy peasy.
yeah, yeah, it would be. You're right. Like Rick says, it's cheap, and I've used it before and didn't have any problem with it. And I'm sure I can get her to give it to me again. I'm as you mentioned, she's conservative. I'm conservative. I'm not, you've heard me talk before, but I'm not going to travel. I can't, I don't like to travel. I don't travel. Um, so I won't go to clinical trials. I'm not going to go to DC to find another doctor. I'm satisfied with the one I have, so, um, but yeah, bicalutamide is an option, and I'll talk to her about that. Uh, and of course, chemo is an option down the road too. Um, I don't know.
Is there any way you'd think about getting at least one second opinion and put your case together for someone who's like in the level of clinical and uh, medoncs that are, genitourinary, who are researchers and in the edges of the field, and just see what they think about your process and maybe consider their opinion? Or is that struggle you don't want to like go through mailing them your information or something?
Um,
Just
I'm
to,
not I'm not averse to the idea.
yeah, because we're all amateur sitting here. I mean, although we
Right.
have a lot of combined experience, but I'd just be curious what a top of the field researcher who's reading the research every other day might think about the process and what might be the best option you might think about that's really what I'm thinking about.
Right. Well, no, thanks for
Wondering,
the thoughts.
yeah, I just wish you would just get that PSA down and not sit around waiting for what comes not with that inevitable attitude, because I'm out of that inevitable attitude. That's all
I
I
agree
wanted
with
to share.
I agree with Larry on that point, Jake. The second opinion. How far are you from Johns Hopkins? Probably not that far, right?
As far as you're concerned, no, it's not very far. As far as I'm concerned, it's the other side of the world.
Well, okay, but just in absolute terms, how many miles?
It's about 20 miles.
20 miles. So, would your wife drive you there or one of your
I
sons?
wouldn't go. I would not
You
go.
wouldn't go? Oh,
Nope.
okay.
How about if one of us, like me, came, picked you up, and drove you there and took you home?
I appreciate that, but no, I wouldn't go.
All right.
I thank you very much, and I appreciate the thought, but no, I would not go.
All right. Well, keep it in mind.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've tried that. I offered to come from this side of the country and said no.
My urologist even offered to take me one time, and I said thank you, but no. So, yeah, I know.
Jake, I just called Uber. They'll be there in 5 minutes.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks a lot, my friend.
They'll be there to kill you.
Exactly. Okay. Anyway, that's my story. That's where I'm at. I'll find out more when I go see my doctor next time. And I'm going to look into darolutamide some more, see if has been any additional research. I haven't checked lately. It's been about a month since I've actually looked up anything. And
I'm actually looking right now at the trials, and there are 8 of them. There are 8 darolutamide trials that are listed. Now, some of them are, let's just see where, 8 studies, 8 studies, some of them are not yet recruiting, some of them are completed, active not recruiting, completed, active not recruiting. There are 3 that are recruiting. But it doesn't matter because you're not going to go to them anyway.
exactly. No, I'm not. You're right. But are they for metastatic?
Yes, there's one for There's an African American study for metastatic. There's one with checkpoint inhibitors. I'm not sure which one I'm not sure which checkpoint inhibitor it's using, and that's for metastatic. Yeah, the 3 that are recruiting are all for metastatic.
Okay, well that's good. That's a switch from before. I don't think they were even talking about metastatic before. And that's why, I talked to Dr. Merchant and you talked to her and we're trying to get an answer. Are they looking into darolutamide for metastatic cancer patients? And we just couldn't get an answer. So,
well, there are 3 currently recruiting for metastatic. With one of them is with pembrolizumab, CDK12.
right.
And there's another one here, active not recruiting for metastatic castrate sensitive. That's interesting. To be used. It's active and not recruiting for use with people that are not yet castrate resistant. But I just want to say, I do think that if you're proactive, the stuff that you can do, and it isn't good to leave it as high as it is without at least trying something. And I know we're limited. I agree with Larry that chemo is an option because we know the earlier you get chemo, the better it is. We know that now. Not a last resort medicine anymore. It might have been 10 years ago or 15 years ago, but we know it isn't a last resort medicine anymore.
Right.
So I just think that you have to come to an agreement with your doc as to what you're going to do. But I don't think that, and I think everybody on this call would agree, that just letting it hang out at the 23, 24 mark on Abby is going to produce the sort of results that you would hope for. I know it's not going up, but you know what you don't want to do is you don't want to wait to respond to it when it's at 225.
Right. Well, believe me, I won't wait that long. It's yeah, it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other as far as I'm concerned. If it was rising, there'd be no question. I'd want to do something else. But since it's basically staying the same, even though it's not a low PSA, it's not going up. So I'm thinking, well, and I feel, you know, other than being tired all the time, I mean, I'm constantly sleepy and tired. I mean, I feel okay. You know, I can't sit like at a table for a long time because my back starts bothering me, but I don't even know if that's prostate cancer. But otherwise, I feel okay. I don't know. Anyway, enough about me. Pick on
I'm
somebody
gonna
else for a
stop.
while.
I'm not gonna try to push you in any way. Just expressing my thoughts. You know, but I do have that. How can I do have a lingering thought. I mean, the way I feel is like when I'm sitting around in limbo with nothing going on, I feel like the cancer is trying to figure out how to mutate and how to improve itself in a situation in my body. And what can I do to like stop that before it does figure that out? That's just my final thought. And
Right.
it's about myself.
Oh, no, I appreciate that, Larry. Thank you. I do have one other comment, Rick, just totally unrelated to me. Some of you might remember Frank Kelly. He passed away a couple of years ago. He was on this call and he was on Inner Conversations, and I kind of felt an affinity for Frank. So I contacted his wife the other day just to say hi and see how you're doing. Yeah, and she just said she said she misses him terribly. You know, she said you just won't believe how much I miss him. But please say hello to the guys on the call. So.
Oh, that's
Thank you.
nice. Yeah, that is nice. Yeah, we'd love to hear from her sometime. Is she's still in the same place? She hasn't moved, hasn't relocated.
As far as I know, she's still in Idaho. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Len, you know, this might be a good time, especially since we don't have a big crew, to talk a little bit about those 2 drugs we were talking about earlier this week, you and I, for fatigue.
I'm sorry, which 2 drugs?
Well, one is the Ritalin.
Oh, yeah.
And then what was the other one that you said, not the...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Modafinil.
Yeah, daffodil, right.
Daffodil, yeah. Right, so these are stimulant drugs. Ritalin, everybody's familiar with.
Right.
It's been generic for many years. Trade name is methylphenidate. I've been taking it for years. You can get a 1 month subscription prescription for less than $5, I think, and it's short acting. Kind of like, for me, it's kind of like having a cup of coffee, only not even as long lasting as a cup of coffee. They say the half-life of caffeine is 6 hours. I think that the half-life of Ritalin is more like maybe 2 or 3 hours. And I never get any side effects of any kind from taking it. So, you know, if somebody's feeling fatigue from their treatment or for whatever reasons, Ritalin is a good choice, first choice. If for some reason that's not helpful, Rick had heard a discussion on, what was it, the sarcoidosis group, Rick?
Yes, the sarcoidosis group, exactly.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess that's there's a large component of fatigue to that disease, and some of the folks on that call were talking about something called uh, armodafinil, which is a stereoisomer, left and right hand image molecule of the original molecule was called modafinil. This is armodafinil, like right hand. And so Rick was asking me for my opinion on that. I told him I thought it was just a pharmaceutical gimmick that allows them to get longer patent protection and keep marketing something as a brand new drug when really it's basically the same as the older drug. The older drug you may have heard is called Provigil. It was originally approved for narcolepsy. And so the patent ran out on that. And so now the pharma company came out with this stereoisomer of Provigil, and they call it Nuvigil. So now you have to pay full price for it, as opposed to a generic price. But nevertheless, just as with Ritalin, modafinil or Provigil is a stimulant, and it might help you to fight fatigue from your cancer treatment or fatigue from any chronic illness. So yeah, that's what Rick and I were talking about.
Yeah, I do remember seeing that conversation. Rick copied me on that conversation that you had with you about the modafinil or whatever it's called.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, but I have a question about the Ritalin. If it only has a half-life of 2 hours, why do you even take it? Do you take it several times a day?
Yeah, you have to take it. They generally recommend you take it 4 to 6 hours, every 4 to 6 hours. I don't take it, religiously, so to speak. I'll always take it when I go to the gym because it just gives me kind of how you feel like if you want to exercise and you just feel like, oh man, I just don't feel like doing this, I'm tired. It gives you a little psychic energy, just like when you're tired and you wake up in the morning and you feel like you just can't get going until you get that first cup of coffee under your belt.
Right.
Ritalin works in the same way. It just gets you psychically more alert and more motivated to do whatever it is you want to do.
Okay.
Now, in my case, I can drink coffee, 1, maybe 2 cups a day. After that, I start to get acid reflux. So that's why Ritalin is a good alternative for me after the first morning coffee.
Well, I do drink coffee all day long, so I don't know.
Okay, yeah. Well, some people, can do that, and you don't have any problems with your stomach. But I'd be, if I drank coffee all day long, I'd be popping antacids all day long along with it. And then when I lie down at night to go to bed, I couldn't even sleep.
Right.
Len, does the modafinil, first of all, does it have a similar half-life? And secondly, does it have the same sort of impact as Ritalin would have? Or do you know how it feels when you take it?
I've never taken it, no, so I don't know. And I don't know the precise details about the half-life. I could find out easily enough. But pretty sure it has a longer half-life than Ritalin because I think you only take it once a day.
Okay, well, I just thought it would be helpful to air that on this forum, since everybody seems to deal with fatigue with advanced prostate cancer, and so hope that it would be beneficial. Any questions from anyone on either of these 2 drugs?
Well, I really do appreciate that. I made a note, Len, that I want to talk to my doctor about Ritalin. I mean, it's a very good idea. And the other drug you mentioned, the one that you said was not was
Yep.
interesting also because usually the activity of drugs that for the body tend to be levorotatory. You were mentioning that there was an R rotatory, and I was thinking, well, that's interesting because that's not usually the one that the body chooses.
Yeah, you may be right about that. I'm not sure, but
I remember that back from the day.
What's the word, Larry?
Well,
Rotatory?
when you see like an L or an R before a drug,
here, see this, Jake?
Yeah.
Let's say that's levo or L, whatever the
that's
drug
R.
is.
Yeah, that's R.
And then this is the R version of the drug. It's
Oh.
just a mirror image chemically. It's the exact same drug, but just
But very often the body only accepts one of them to be active.
yes, that's true.
That's
And
interesting.
so the marketing gimmick is that, oh, this is pure, only the active isomer that you're taking. Well, if the other isomer that's inactive isn't doing you any harm, so what?
Okay. Thank you,
Okay,
guys.
it's a pleasure. Now you're going to have to give us a report.
Larry or me?
No, Jake. Jake's gonna, because now we're gonna be asking him, Jake, what's going on? Did you talk about any of this stuff? So okay, let's move on to Dennis. Dennis, tell us what's going on with you.
Well, as we speak, I am waiting for the UPS truck to bring me my first delivery of my abiraterone, the generic.
Oh, the generic.
Yeah, I'll start in January with that. I've got enough of the other one to get me through the end of this month.
Right.
But, and I did find out the price they're going to charge me is $165 for the 30-day supply. And that's my cost, which means it's about a little over $400 less than what I was paying for the brand name. So
That's
good deal. So I'm happy with
That's a
that,
big
and
difference. Yeah.
I'll continue to be happy if it works as well as the other one. So, and that's it on update on that issue. Len, I had a question. Wife and I both had our GP physicals a week ago, and she's suggesting the shingles vaccine called Shingrix, where you have to get the 2 injections. And she's going to get hers until I get clarification from my doc, and then I'll try to get mine. But she was concerned about her getting it and then giving me shingles because she's got the Shingrix vaccine. I don't think so. You don't think so either. I can see, but shaking your head. But
No,
if you want me
no,
to
it's
check with
not,
you,
Dennis, it's not a live vaccine. There's no
right?
possible way you can get shingles from the vaccine.
Right.
And, this is serendipitous, but just today, my wife and I got our second Shingrix vaccine here in Florida. We got the first one in Connecticut after waiting months before they finally had it available.
Right.
And the second one you're supposed to take somewhere between 2 and 6 months after or 2 and 4 months after the first. And up in Connecticut, I went to like 5 different pharmacies and no one had it. Now, they don't know when they're going to get it. So I come down here to Florida, go to Publix supermarket, pharmacy, and they've got it. And so we took care of that.
Yeah,
And
we're gonna get her from Costco
oh,
Pharmacy. Yeah.
good.
Oh.
And
Are both
the other
doses
thing,
the same, Len?
yeah. Go ahead, Jake.
I was asking, are both doses the same, or are they different,
Yeah,
slightly different
yeah,
formulation?
they're identical. It's just like a booster.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
And
I just had one a couple of years ago, but it wasn't Shingrix. It was something
no,
else.
Yeah, it was the older one was not at all effective.
Oh, lovely.
So, yeah. So if Shingrix is supposed to be remarkably effective, something like 90+%, which for vaccines is remarkable.
That is, yeah.
And um, I think they say something like 60% of people, or maybe even higher than that, over 65 will get shingles in their lifetime. And you can get it more than once. And it's a very unpleasant condition. I have two brother-in-laws. Both of them have had shingles. One of them has had it like 3 times. So that scared me enough to make sure I got the vaccine. Plus, also, when you go to the PCRI conference, I think it's Mark Moyad, who's a big booster of vaccines. He believes that vaccines are not only give you immunity to the disease that they're intended for, but they give your body a general immune boost. And he said, go out and get vaccines whenever you can. So, for whatever that's worth.
Thanks, Len.
So this is
Sure.
Peter. I want to weigh in for a second on this one. This is not intended to scare anybody because I'm a firm believer in the vaccine too. But I had shingles several years ago, and I got the regular shingles shot that Jake was speaking about. But then last year or year before, I got the Shingrix 2 vaccine thing. And I did actually get a reaction to the second Shingrix shot. I picked up a very small shingles reaction, and I knew right away that it was shingles because it was the rash. Wasn't full blown like it was the first time I had it, but it was a little bit on one side on my back, and I knew right away what was going on. But it only lasted a couple of weeks, and I called the company up, the Shingrix company up, and I also called the Center of Disease Control or whatever it is, the national hotline to report it and stuff. And they took all of my information. They were very nice about it, but they said, yes, in rare cases, you can actually pick up some kind of shingles infection from it. And I was one of those rare cases, but it dissipated really fast and it didn't really do much, but I noticed it right off the bat. Within a day or two after the injection.
Well, that's interesting because the patient information that they give you says that it's not a live vaccine and there's no way that you could get shingles from the vaccine. Well, like you say, if your case is extremely rare, it could be like the polio vaccine where there were, like 1 in a million people or something like that had an unusual chemical reaction in their gut where your own body would convert the vaccine into a live virus. Extremely rare, but
Yeah, I'm not saying it to scare anybody. I would probably do it again, but it just, it was noticeable, and I did report it, because it was, it didn't knock me off my feet, but I definitely had a small rash and symptoms of shingles. Yeah. Nothing serious or nothing I panicked about, but I picked it up right away, and it was the second shot, not the first.
Right, but the other thing, you have an unusual case in that you already had shingles before you even got the vaccine. You had at least one instance. Yeah, so maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not quite as effective if you've already had shingles.
Don't know. Yeah, don't know that one.
Is there treatment? Just out of curiosity, is there treatment for shingles once you get it?
They do something if you can get it right away, but it's not 100% effective. It kind of helps knock it down, but it's kind of like trying to hit the flu or something like that before it gets too out of hand. But you got to do it fast, I think.
Did you get treated when you got it the second time, Peter?
No, I
just
didn't,
went out of stuff?
because it wasn't that serious. No, I didn't get any kind of treatment. No, I just said it dissipated pretty fast, and it wasn't excruciating painful like it was the time before when I had it.
You know, I had a pretty strong reaction to the first of those 2 shots. And when I went back to the pharmacy, she said, you know, that's kind of common. And I had it, she said usually it's just a couple of days, but mine went on for like a week and a half. And I had a rash at the spot, but it didn't go to the sides or anyplace else. And it seemed that that's something that the pharmacist has heard about often, but that it wasn't actual shingles. It was just a body's reaction to the shot.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what she said. But I haven't gone for my second shot, and it's been 6 months, and now I think I have to go. It scared me. Because
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I scared you.
no, I mean I didn't enjoy the first shot, and I was saying it happens also on the second shot, especially if you have a reaction on the first. That it didn't mean that you're not going to get a reaction. It means you're likely to get a reaction. And then they tried to charge me $300. My insurance company had to fight with them. There was a big mess up, so I got angry and I said, "That's it." I didn't go back in August, but now I'm going to go back right away. I made a note. Thank you.
I thought it's free.
If my insurance company covers it, it's free. They kept denying the payment, but it turns out that they were not billing it in the right way. They were billing it as a pharmaceutical, whereas actually had a. Anyway, that doesn't matter. I don't think I never sent them the 300, and I threatened to leave Walgreens.
Anybody have experience with Medicare paying for it?
Yeah, I think Medicare paid for mine.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah. The original shot that I had, my wife and I had, it was free. Medicare, I don't think it was even charged. I don't remember us ever getting a bill, and my wife's not even on Medicare, so I guess my secondary insurance paid for it.
Yeah, I thought I'd ask because that's my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, the last item I had, briefly, I was looking at some stuff, and I don't remember, maybe we've talked about it before, that trial called the HERO trial program, and that oral drug for replacing Lupron. You guys heard about that? Relugolix
Oh yeah.
or something like that.
Yes, that's actually an oral version of darolutamide or Firmagon.
Okay, and that's supposed to be they're going to the FDA early this year, I think, for that. I kind of thought about Jake. Jake, I don't know, you're on Lupron, aren't you? You still
Yes,
on?
I am.
And you have to go out every 4 months. And you have to go out to get that, right?
Yes.
Out of your home, and so I don't know if that's, you know, a problem for you having to leave the house. That might be an option for you.
Well, that's a good thought. You know, I didn't realize. I do remember hearing something about an oral version, but I didn't know it was close to being approved.
Yeah, I think second quarter 2020.
Oh.
So
yeah, I'm just putting the link for the trial in the chat window. I sent it just to Larry Fish. I meant to send it to everybody. Hold on a minute. I'll send it to everybody this time. But I don't know when it's.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Peter.
Do you take it orally, or do you let it dissolve in your belly button?
Very good. Very good. Up your, yeah. It dissolves up your tuchus. That's where it dissolves.
You mean your sheikhel?
Absolutely. I'm just wondering if there's any projection of when it's going. Dennis, what made you seem to think it was be approved in early in the new year?
Just reading the hot sheet. And
Okay, it was on the hot sheet, huh? Okay. Okay. Well, it's interesting because I'm just looking here. It has been approved for the treatment of uterine fibroids in Japan. So obviously it is safe for human consumption, and I just wonder when it'll get done. I haven't looked at the hot sheet yet.
well, this is the yeah, I'm looking at it, and it was on the first page, I guess.
Okay.
Hot sheet. And
Good job.
bottom, and it says the results support a new drug application submission to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration in the second quarter of 2020, and then it's about future regulatory submissions in Europe and Japan. This is all for the advanced prostate cancer.
Okay.
Well, that would be wonderful. I mean, for the people that get darolutamide now, I mean, I know a lot of people have problems with that shot.
Yeah, that's
painful
hard. I
and
started out on that. That was horrible.
and they get lumps and everything.
Yep.
So yeah, that'd be a great alternative.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, that's very. By the way, for those of you on the telephone, we are now posting the chat log. Jake did it last time, and hopefully he'll do it again. I really appreciate it. But we're posting it to the Prostate Cancer Forum on our website. So if any of these links that I'm throwing on or anybody else throws on in the chat window, you can pick them up off of the website if you go to the forum. If you haven't been on there before, you'll have to register. But if you've already been on, you'll be able to go on and you'll be able to pull them off the forum. And that forum is available to start conversations on anything. And one other thing, I'm just looking here, the trade name for this new drug is going to be Relumina, Relumina, Relumina. So if you hear about Relumina, that's what it is. Now, I am thinking that's probably what they call it for the women. They may change the name for the men. What do you think, Len?
Yeah, I guess it's possible. You have Prolia and Xgeva as the precedent.
And this says it's Relugolix, and there was some conversation here about women's use for women's for
right. So relugolix is the generic name, but the trade name, so that would be like abiraterone acetate. But the trade name, which would be equivalent to Zytiga, is going to be, or is Relumina right now.
I didn't even see that in here.
Well, they may not have put it in the hot sheet. I'm picking that up from somewhere else other than the hot sheet.
Yeah, the company was Myovant Sciences.
Right.
Sure okay.
Right. Right.
That brings up another question that somebody, you know, we talked about this many years ago, as I remember, and I'm probably the one that asked it, but Lupron is, I forget what it is, an LHRH, and the darolutamide is something. It's a reverse or it's a different kind of formulation. It's not an LHRH, it's something else.
What Lupron is an LHRH agonist.
Agonist, that's the word. Thank you.
And Firmagon or darolutamide is an LHRH antagonist.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Len. Thank goodness for you. You're always on the ball. No, but I guess my question is there any benefit to switching from one to the other? You know, especially if somebody once you become castrate resistant and it's no longer you know, we say Lupron doesn't work anymore, but it is working. It's just not working as effectively as we would like. What would be the benefit? Would there be any benefit to switching to the antagonist?
I wouldn't
Well,
think so.
No.
It's
So
96.7%. Let's see, at a 95% confidence interval was the endpoint here. 97.9% of 96.7% of men receiving the once daily oral relugolix achieve sustained testosterone suppression to castrate levels.
right. So let me just go back. Let's just go back to Jake's question, because it's a good question, Jake.
Thank you.
And I just saw something this week. Somebody wrote about, I'm trying to think where I saw it, about the use of darolutamide for people with heart conditions, because it has less side effects than the agonist.
Right.
And somebody wrote it up this week as to the difference. But we do seem to think that the antagonist is more effective than the agonist. But I've never read anywhere that if you are castrate resistant, it makes you castrate sensitive again.
Right.
In other words, it won't reverse the effect on the androgen receptors, but what it will do is it'll hold your testosterone down to a lower level, probably.
Yeah, it does control T levels better than Lupron. The only thing I didn't like about that relugolix clinical trial is that they defined keeping testosterone at castrate levels as anything below 50 nanograms. That's kind of high.
That is
high, yeah.
That was an easy bar to pass.
Yeah, that's like from 5 years ago was the standard. Then they reduced the standard to 20.
Yeah.
And even that is considered high nowadays.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but I don't know that the darolutamide was approved for anything less than 50. I don't think you have to look, but I don't know that the darolutamide trials were based on less than 20.
Right.
I don't remember. It was before my time.
Yeah, or any of the other ones. But we do know that it does work better. I put the Wikipedia entry in the chat window for you, so you can take a look. You can take a look at that. But yes, I think that for men who are castrate sensitive, there's definitely reason to switch to Firmagon, Darolutamide, and I guess even if you're castrate resistant, you may get a better response from it than from the agonist.
So is that something worth talking to my doctor about and asking her? I mean, yeah, I don't like the idea of it right now because it's a once a month shot, and I don't like, Len told horror stories of this shot in the stomach and all that, and I keep that in mind. But is that something worth talking about?
I mean, if I was ranking what we spoke about earlier, it would probably be at the lower end of the list. I mean, it's worth it, but that would be me. My opinion, I would have that lower down because I think that's less likely to produce a result than any of the other three things we talked about. Len,
Okay.
what's your thought?
I'm of a similar mind as you, Rick. Of course, I don't know. Do you have heart issues, Jake?
Not really. I mean, they thought I had mitral valve prolapse years ago, but then they can't find it anymore. So, but I mean, I've been on Lupron for 7 years and I haven't had any issues yet. I'm still kicking. So
Right.
I guess I
Yeah.
don't have any heart issues to answer your question. I just thought maybe, because the Lupron is an agonist, as you pointed out, and the other one's an antagonist. I thought maybe when one stopped working effectively, it doesn't stop working as a lot of times we say it stopped working, and that's not true. It's still working. Because if I stopped it now, my PSA would probably go through the roof.
Right.
So it is having a benefit.
No,
but I
no.
was wondering,
It probably wouldn't, Jake, because you're taking Zytiga now, which all by itself does a better job of suppressing testosterone than either Lupron or Firmagon.
okay.
And as a matter of fact, it wasn't too long ago, a few months ago, they did a small study, showing that Zytiga alone was just as good as Zytiga plus Lupron in keeping T levels very low.
Hmm.
Well, then why am I still on Lupron?
Well,
I mean, most people on this call, on Zytiga or Xtandi or whatever, they always take it in conjunction with Lupron or darolutamide.
Right.
Yeah, you would need to take Lupron or daguerreolex if you're taking an androgen receptor blocker like Xtandi or Erlita or even darolutamide. But Zytiga is different from all of those in that it doesn't block the androgen receptor. Instead, it blocks the production of testosterone.
Okay.
Which is what Lupron and daguerreolex also do, but they don't do as good a job as Zytiga.
Right. Well, that's you're right about that, Len, because since I've been on the abiraterone, my testosterone was never below 20, ever.
Right.
Since I've been on the abiraterone, it's been less than 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're right about that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. Well, look, let's keep moving. We're doing a heck of a job of eating up the time with just a few of us here, but that's because we got interesting conversation. And I wanted to check in with Les. Les, did you need any time today?
Not really. I did want to mention a little bit. Had you heard from Dell at all?
No, have not.
Okay, the last I heard from him today, and he's been very pleased with visiting Dr. Morgan's. He's going to have robotic surgery, I think it was January 8th. He was hoping to have it earlier than that, but anyway, he was very pleased with the recommendation, that you had made. So he's
and where's he going to have that surgery?
I assumed he didn't say. I assumed he was going to have it done up there, right?
Okay.
Because he said that Dr. Morgan's arranged with another surgeon, Dr. Kundu, whatever, right then. So
Okay.
it must have been right on the premises.
Okay. Well, I mean, that just confirms the earlier conversation we had, which is that there's really a movement towards debulking the primary even in metastatic men. So, we just hear about this now time and time again. So, but thank you for that, Les. Thank you for the update. Larry Fish, what's on your mind?
Well, whatever it is, whatever it was, it is what it is as they said in The Irishman, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It was back to these discussions with my doctor about going through that. I didn't discuss it with her, But this idea of, since I do test as castrate resistant, maybe I can think about going to darolutamide if I can get a scan that doesn't show metastasis. And then there was the issue of, if you were metastatic and it seems to have resolved, are you no longer metastatic? And whether that definition applies. And she wasn't sure about that. She would say that your castrate resistant can disappear, but your metastasis, I think, stays. So once you're metastatic, you're considered metastatic, I believe. Anyway, that was, I couldn't get clarity on that, and I didn't know if that's like, did I just go like through twists and turns and confuse everybody?
Yeah. Len, you want to take a crack at that first?
Were you talking to me, Rick?
I was.
Okay, so this is my opinion, not a fact, but my opinion is that if you get a technetium bone scan now and you don't see any metastatic lesions, I think that would clear you to get darolutamide. Because if they challenge it in any way, you just say, hey, take a look at my bone scan. It doesn't show any metastases. That's how I got it. And I think you should be able to get it for the same reason.
I think I'm going to try to pursue that. That's one of the things. I'm the same kind of like Jake. I mean, I want to discuss revisiting bicalutamide, because the way that we've been thinking is more about the debulking the primary, seeing the radiation oncologist, or preparing for Zytiga, but staying in limbo while we wait for the results of the scans, which haven't yet shown any metastasis with this creeping PSA. And I'm thinking maybe I should do something before the scans start to show something. And this idea of darolutamide as a single monotherapy is something I presented, which my doctor said, well, there's no actual research showing that for darolutamide.
No, you can't do, well, you could do darolutamide monotherapy, but you're guaranteed to have gynecomastia.
Oh. I like the guarantee.
Well, what happens is the darolutamide is blocking the androgen receptors, but you still have testosterone running around your bloodstream. And the excess testosterone gets converted to estrogen. And there's nothing to block estrogen from, acting at your breast tissue and developing breasts.
Okay, I think I follow that.
Now, yeah, right, okay. Now, because you said monotherapy. Now, if you took Lupron plus darolutamide, you'd be fine, right, because Lupron keeps your T levels low.
But if Zytiga acts as a monotherapy just as well, or maybe better, just as well as Lupron plus Zytiga, that seems a lot more like the most attractive of the alternatives, rather than have to deal with the additional fatigue and the additional hot flashes. To try to convince to go just to Zytiga and darolutamide, whichever one is the one you're saying works as a monotherapy.
Yeah, Zytiga.
Right. I think I have to go figure out that research and present that. I'm sure she knows.
But there is an issue there. The abiraterone, even if you did it as a monotherapy, is going to get rid of all of the testosterone in your body. It's still going to keep your testosterone low.
Right.
And if your testosterone is low, you're going to have all of the side effects of like you would have if you were on an LHRH, I believe.
Don't you feel like
it's not like letting the testosterone run around in your body and blocking it from the androgen receptors. In that, where testosterone might work without an androgen receptor, I don't even know if this is, I may be talking through my rear end, as is often the case, but it seems to me that if you have testosterone in your body and you're just blocking it from the receptors, testosterone may still be able to do certain things for you. I'm not sure. Is that true, Len? Or
Yeah, I think it's been shown that monotherapy with androgen receptor blockers like enzalutamide or Erleada, and no doubt darolutamide, they're not as effective as dual therapy, with Lupron or darolutamide.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, wouldn't you feel better?
Yeah.
You might not be,
yeah, you would probably feel better, have less hot flashes, because you do have some testosterone zipping around, less fatigue.
Yeah. But I think the issue for you, I mean, I'm just looking at my notes on you, Larry, and the scans that you did in September, they still showed no metastasis, or what was the result of those?
Yeah, they didn't show any, additional or active metastasis at this point.
Right. So,
that's why we've been holding off. Yeah.
Right, but then you are castrate resistant, correct?
Well,
your PSA is rising.
Right, it's rising slowly and steadily, point by point.
Right. So I mean, so the bottom line from that is that you're a great candidate for darolutamide because you're castrate resistant, but by all accounts, you're not metastatic according to the definition. And so,
right, so that's what I'm thinking about. That's exactly the way I'm thinking is.
Right. But it doesn't mean
which way to go.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you could stop the LHRH drug, though.
I see.
But as Len will tell you, he feels much better on the darolutamide with Lupron than he did on the abiraterone with Lupron.
Yep, definitely.
So that's the direction. That's what I've been thinking about. That's since there's not a lot of people on the call, just to discuss where my thinking is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that it would be a great idea for you to get that technetium scan and to qualify yourself for the darolutamide. I mean, the question that you ask though is, if you're metastatic and the Mets go away, can you be non-metastatic? Or once metastatic, always metastatic? That I don't really have a response to. Does anybody?
According to my doctor, those definitions can be fuzzy sometimes.
For sure.
And it's a fuzzy, can be a fuzzy situation.
Steve Strom on MedPage Today this week was making the point about how fuzzy the definition of metastasis is. Because he wrote something and I think I responded to him. I can't even remember. What was that about, Len? I'm the one that's not on Lupron and I can't think straight today. What was that
about? Well, Steve Strom was trying to make a point that the fellow who wrote the article was characterizing castrate resistant as now I'm getting confused. Strom's argument was that you are, what's that?
No, it's Peter. I'm just going to silence Peter for a second. Go ahead.
That you're not castrate resistant even until you're resistant to the first line anti-androgens like bicalutamide, flutamide, and whatever the other one is, nilutamide.
Yeah.
Whereas, Rick was, and I agree with Rick, that you're castrate resistant once you become resistant to Lupron alone, before you even consider the first line anti-androgens like bicalutamide.
Right. And now, if we've confused you all enough, and I don't have the time. Well, maybe I'll we could probably put the reference in the chat window. Although I'm not quite sure where. Yeah, I know where to find it. So Len, you take over. I'll put the reference to that in the chat window in case anybody wants to look at what we said.
Okay. Well, can I ask if there's anyone who wanted to speak who didn't yet get a chance to?
Peter. We have
Peter.
to.
Did you unmute him?
He's unmuted. Peter, you there?
I'm here. You getting feedback?
No. Not right now.
Okay. Actually, now I have about 6 questions. So a couple of short answer, yes or no, or whatever. So one that just came up was, Len, did you do your technetium scan before your PSMA or after?
Both.
Both.
Both
Okay.
Before and after, and they were negative on both occasions.
Okay. Good information. Another comment was, I perked up my ears. I've never heard of anybody. I mean, even though I've asked the questions to different docs, I've never heard of anybody on Zytiga not being told to do Lupron as well. I've never heard of anybody getting off Lupron. That's new information to me. So I for sure will ask that question more adamantly. But every doc I've seen always tells people to stay on Lupron, even though they're gone to Zytiga.
Yeah,
So
that's true. But I think I actually posted this on the ANCAN blog, this study that showed that Zytiga alone was just as effective as Zytiga plus Lupron in suppressing T levels. So you might find it there.
Well, I will look for it, and I will bring that up, when I go with people in my own situation too. I'll talk to Turner about it next week. So I don't know what lies ahead for me. A lot of this information that we've discussed is very pertinent and intriguing, and it's a lot of ammunition for me, a lot of stuff to put in my quiver. One thing that I'm totally always get confused, and I think I asked this question a month ago or so, and I still can't wrap my head around it, and I don't know. But do we know anybody that's ever done pembrolizumab for prostate cancer? Keytruda? Anybody that we know has done that trial or treatment at all for prostate cancer? I can't think of anybody.
Yeah, Trevor Doherty did it, but he got it way too late. For sure. And somebody else we know has done it. I'll need to look and tell you, but we know a couple of people, yes.
I think it's one of those things like we were talking about earlier, a last resort type of thing rather than early. So, but it's in my quiver of questions to ask. So that brings up the question I think I asked a month or two ago. I just can't wrap my head around it. I can't remember it, and that relates to this MSI business. MSI high, MSI medium, MSI low, and I know that the advantage is if you have MSI high, But if your MSI is medium, but it's based on 4-year-old, 5-year-old tissue, is it possible that MSI could be different now than it was then? And, how do I determine this? And, those are questions that I kind of have about, whether Keytruda is going to be an option for me, or whether I just go standard of care, chemo, or what's going to happen depending on the results of my scan next week.
Well,
MSI stands for microsatellite instability, and when I had my tumor tissue tested from my prostatectomy in 2015, in February of 2015, so that makes it almost 5 years old now, 4 years old when it was tested. Whether and it wasn't, MSI was not high in that sample, but can it change? I don't know. Those things I don't know. I'm not really clear on that whole thing.
Peter, I don't know about the MSI high part of it, but I just saw something just the other day, and I don't remember where. Maybe I can find it again, and if I do, I'll send it to you. About pembrolizumab, they did a study. They had 3 arms, and the response rate was extremely low in all those arms. The ones that had the most benefit and was people that had bone mets. Even those had like a 15% response rate, with a lot of grade 3 and grade 4 side effects and 1 death. So my doctor mentioned Keytruda to me also, and I'm not enthusiastic about that one at all.
Yeah, but Jake, you need to, and I think we've talked about this before, we know Keytruda only works if you have certain markers like being MSI high.
Right, and PD-L1 too, I believe, right?
Right, so you need to know ahead of time whether you have any of those markers. To throw it just against the wall and hope it'll stick is not the way to use pembrolizumab. I mean, my question to you in that study was, what was the profile of the people that were taking it with respect to these markers?
Yeah, that I don't know. I just saw a summary of the study. It might have been on Us Too, or it might have been one of those MD Links things. I do know that there's 3 arms, and none of them responded very successfully in my view. But the best responders were people with bone mets.
Well, what got my attention to it was that there were, I've read about people that had total remission, because it's an immunotherapy, and there were people that had genetic markers that was highly effective for it. So that's what got my attention.
I'll see if I can find that study, and I'll send it to you, Peter.
Okay, thank you.
I think that Professor Bill did pembrolizumab. Yeah, he did. But I don't know what his MSI was. He would have known for sure. He would have known, and he was tested for it. So I don't have a. I'm just looking through his. I'm just looking through his record here, and I don't see a number. I don't see if he was MSI high or he was not MSI high, but he did do pembrolizumab, and I think he tolerated it pretty well. I mean, I've got some notes here that back in early 18. He didn't know what his MSI hadn't been measured. He was getting it sequenced around that time, but I don't have a note of whether he of what his MSI was. The question as to whether your MSI can change Peter, did you say yours was not high when they tested it?
Right, it was in the medium range, I believe.
But that was from a 5-year-old study, correct?
Correct. But I
A
have,
5-year-old
at this point,
sample.
I have nothing else. At this point, I have nothing else to test unless they do a liquid biopsy, and I don't know if they can get it from that.
Well, again, I think that's a question you'd have to ask Turner, and I suspect Turner would know the answer, and I think
Right.
it would
Right.
be very helpful if you reported back to us on that, because
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't that any of us know whether. My guess is it does change, but I'm not certain. That's just a guess. That it will change somatically, but I honestly don't know. That's a Professor Bill question.
Right. So that brings up. I want to go back to our very first conversation when Jake was on the hook here and talking about doctors and stuff. You know, I mean, I don't think any of us or anybody really wants to hear a doctor say, "I don't know." But I think, in all honesty, any good doctor in our situation would say, "I don't know." I mean, a lot of this is a little not. I'm not going to call it a crapshoot, but I think there's more science behind it all than that. But I mean, we are guinea pigs. I mean, we are trying to find, you know, drugs and treatments and things that'll bring good results, not only for us, but for guys down the line, you know, long after we're gone, or a short time after we're gone, or whatever. You know, there's still a lot to discover in this field, and any doctor who's arrogant enough to say that this is the treatment you'll do, no ands, ifs, or buts, and not really be open to conversation is very limited, I think. So I hope we all have doctors that we can have really down-to-earth conversations with and really explore this stuff and the pluses and minuses. You know, I feel confident that I've landed on a doctor that I can do that with and not bullying me around. But I know that there are doctors, because I accompany guys to their appointments, who you know, you can't nudge out of that arrogant, you know, I know what's best type of mentality. And with advanced prostate cancer, it's not the best kind of doctor to have, I don't think.
Well, I mean, I think we all agree with you. I mean, the doctor who says, "I don't know, but I'll look into it," is much more preferable to the doctor who says, "Well, you know, this won't work." And so that's what we encourage. What I will do on the MSI question is I'll drop Larry Fong a note and ask him. He'll know the answer. So you check with Turner, I'll check with Larry and ask him whether MSI can change over time. I think that will be helpful. Who else has any comments on this issue about the type of doctor? Because that's a good discussion.
Well, I ran into that same issue with my first medical oncologist at Sloan Kettering, which is why I switched to Mount Sinai, Dr. O. I had an oncologist at MSK who was just as Peter described, you know, I'm in charge here and I'm calling the shots. You just sit and listen to me and we'll get along fine. Completely different approach than Dr. William O. at Mount Sinai. He's always soliciting my opinion, like, how would you like to do that? Does that make sense? That kind of thing.
Great.
Peter, I did find the article in Clinical Oncology. I sent it to you in email, and I also posted it in the chat box.
Thanks very much, Jake.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
And were you talking about me earlier? Because I was hunting around, and I know you were talking about doctors. Were you talking about me or my doctor?
No, I was talking about you behind your back. Yeah.
I don't see it in the chat window. Did you send it just to Peter?
No, I thought I sent it to everybody. Hang on, let me double check. Oh yeah, gotta hit send, don't you? Duh.
That's a good idea.
When in doubt, hit send.
Yeah.
Yes, it should be there now.
Yeah, I put that strong thing in there. It was from an article about docetaxel may boost survival in metastatic castrate-resistant prostate cancer.
I thought he retired.
Yeah, he has. He just hangs out in the chats and makes comments.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I still don't see it.
I don't either.
I don't either. We don't either. We don't see it, Jake. Oh, boy. Put it in again and make sure it says to everyone.
Yeah. For some reason, it's not sending. It's not letting me send.
Oh, dear.
Peter, did you get it?
I'm in my car. I can't get it.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay.
What are you doing in your car again? I forgot what.
What is that?
Did you lose power in your house? Why are you in your car?
Because I'm in town. I'm not home.
It's not worth his while going home. So he's there. It is. We got it. Okay. Thank you, Jake.
I don't know why it wouldn't send. For some reason, I had to repaste it. Whatever. It worked.
Oh, it's an antenna. It's an antennarakis trial. Okay. Well, we've got people seeing antennarakis right now. They could ask him too. We got a couple of people seeing antennarakis right now. Who just went to see him and they really like him? I forget. I'll have to look.
Well, there's a young guy in my local prostate cancer group in Danbury who I recommended he go to antennarakis, and he says he's fantastic. He loves the guy.
Yeah, well, I know that Susan LaHaye liked him very much because he looked after Ron, and I'm just want to see who else. Somebody else that we're talking to right now is seeing antennarakis. Let me see. Oh, Joel Blanchette. That's who it is. Joel Blanchette is seeing antennarakis. So yeah, he'd be another good one to ask about whether the MSI changes. We could get Joel to ask him. Anyway,
I could call Foundation Medicine up too. I mean, they'd be good. They're usually available to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they would really know though, because it's kind of prostate cancer specific. You know, the question is, does MSI change over time? You could rather than call them up, send a note to David Marshak and ask him if he could find out the answer for us.
Okay, if I have time to put it together, I'll do that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, see if he's got an answer, or you know, I can try and do it too. If I do it before you, I'll copy you, and so
okay.
So I can get it out to a couple of people, and we'll see.
I thought he's on family leave now or something.
Oh no, he's back to work.
Oh, okay.
He's been back to work for a couple of months. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the one thing we do know with the testing is that it's not good to test old tissue because the cancer changes.
Right, but if you're in a situation like I am, where all you have is old tissue, you got to go with it. What do you do?
Well, I mean, Peter, when you had those lymph nodes in your abdomen, could they in your upper abdomen, they weren't able to get to those?
No, because it was radiation. I mean, I guess I could have asked to have. They were very small. I mean, it was 1 millimeter or less or something. They're pretty small, and I don't know. It never occurred to me that whether you could biopsy something that small, and whether it would make sense.
Well, I can't answer whether you could biopsy something that small, but I can tell you that they certainly can biopsy the lymph nodes. I don't know what size they have to be, and there may not have been enough tissue there.
Well, I'll know next week whether I got something biopsyable, if that's a word. Well, I'll have to submit that to the dictionary, to Webster's, to see if biopsyable is a word. If not, I'll make it a word for next year.
No, I use biopsyable. Let's at least get joint credit for it, Peter.
Okay.
All right. As a minimum, I think we should have joint credit for it. All right. We've managed to while away 2 hours here. Anybody have anything to talk about that we have missed? Did everybody get in everything they wanted to say?
Yes.
Guess so. All right. Well, I've got to move on. We've got the multiple sclerosis course starting in half an hour. So we'll see what sort of activity we have on that one. I think everybody's so busy with Christmas parties that they can't be bothered with virtual support groups right now. So.
All right. Even though I have one closing comment, if I can do it. It'll be quick.
Of course.
Okay. So, because of my upcoming scan and everything, I got proactive, and I met with a lawyer and redid my will and my trust and my medical powers of attorney and all that stuff. And one thing my lawyer told me, which I think is a smart move, is that I should set up a separate savings account under my trust name and stash away the money that I want to give to charity specifically, and not just assume that my sons will appropriate it as I see fit from my general trust. So that it's actually tagged and put in a bank account that says so much is going to go to ANCAN, so much is going to go to PCRI, so much is going to go to Pacific Cancer Foundation, et cetera, et cetera. And I had never thought about that before. I mean, even though I implicitly trust my son, he said that, a wise thing to do is set up an account with the money that you want to send to specific charities already tagged. And that's which I took to heart and did. And I know it's a tough subject to talk about, but it's the end of the year, and it's always wise to get our affairs in order.
Do you need my address, Peter?
What's that?
Jake wants to know if you need his address.
Sure.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Sure.
Peter, when you set such an account up, who is the administrator of such an account?
It's the administrator of your trust. In my situation, it's my younger son, both my sons recipients of the trust, but one of them is the administrator, my younger son, who's a little more business savvy, and so he will take care of all the legal stuff. But the lawyer said the best way to do this is in terms of rather than just have all the cash or whatever it is together, to have something separate if you want to give it to specific organizations or foundations or whatever.
Then it's not mentioned in the trust, but simply in the will.
It's mentioned in the trust and in the will, but he said that the cleanest way to do this is to actually, it doesn't cost anything, to actually have a separate savings account with that specific amount of money put aside in it, so that there's no question about where it's coming from.
Peter, why not just give the money now? If you're going to set aside a certain amount, why not just give it now and maybe get a tax benefit while you're still alive?
Because I'm living off that money.
And how about maybe he's going to stay alive for quite a while?
Yeah.
My
anyway.
Okay.
Anyway, whatever. I mean, we could tear this thing apart, but it's just my closing comment that it's I feel much lighter having taken some action. That's all. Just saying.
Yeah, Peter, when you set up a bank account and leave it in the bank account in trust then it's done. It's like you're okay, and when you're dead, that money automatically goes to the place that you've left it in trust for. It doesn't become part of the rest of your estate. So that's what
exactly
resolves that.
Right.
Is it revocable? Can you?
No, it's revocable. I can change it. I can change it at any time. Yeah.
You have a bank account. You can just move the money out, and that's it. You don't have to. You're the primary holder of the bank account. You leave it in trust.
Right.
It only becomes active if something happens, and you can't.
And the interest, and the interest on that money doesn't go back into the account. It comes to you, correct?
I don't know. I haven't figured that one out yet. I haven't got to that point yet. I'll figure that out.
Okay.
The person that trust for doesn't exist. When you die, it goes back into your estate.
Right.
All right. Well, listen, just one other quick comment on this pembrolizumab trial that Jake posted. I cannot get to the full article. I don't have access to the full article, I don't think. It's from the Journal of Clinical Oncology.
You can you have to sign up for an account. You're right.
I'll search for it. I'll find it.
It's a free sign up because I can't afford to pay for the subscription. So
it is a free sign up. But my point is that in the summary, it doesn't mention anything about categorizing these groups according to their MSI or their PD-L1.
Right. Yeah, I don't think it did.
In any case,
hold on. Yeah, I stand corrected. It does talk about whether they had PD-L1 or not, but it doesn't say anything about MSI.
But in any case, the response rates were abysmally low, 5% and 3%, I think.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, that was the point I was trying to make. Were you able to see the whole thing, Len?
I didn't try to. I just read the abstract.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll check it out when I get home.
Okay. All right, everybody.
Have a good week, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Next week.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Good night, all.
Good night.